Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. It's Christina from Our Wood Home. This is my first video of 2025 and I thought I would talk to you a little bit about some things that happened last year. Specifically, everything that I canned last year in 2024. I'm not going to be talking about things I preserved in other ways, just canned using my steam canner and pressure canner. On the screen here, you can see a photo from, I believe it was November 2024, of my preserving area in the basement. I thought it would be kind of fun for this video just to have pictures of different things I've canned throughout last year. I'm going to be giving totals for everything that I canned, and then at the end of the video I will share the grand total number of jars. I always keep track of my canned goods. Well, I should say, as long as I've been intentionally canning for the last few years, I've been keeping a record, and I think that's just really fun to do, and it's helpful for me because I can see if we ran out of something really soon in the year, then I can prepare for the next year or the next season and can a little bit more. We ran out of canned tomatoes in 2024, early 2024, pretty quickly, and I refused to buy any from the store, so we just didn't have tomato products until the summer when the garden started producing. So it was a big priority for me to do a lot of canned tomatoes. I'm going to start with the juice section of my list. I canned 47 jars of pineapple juice, 53 jars of cranberry juice, 9 jars of strawberry lemonade, 4 jars of peach lemonade, 11 jars of watermelon lemonade, and 12 jars of spiced cranberry cider. For the next section, it's broth. I did 16 jars of beef broth, 26 jars of chicken broth, 6 jars of turkey broth, 2 of mushroom broth, 7 of vegetable and beef broth mixed together. I also did 22 jars of just plain unseasoned chicken broth for my dog. We mixed that in with her food. I did a new type of stock called meat stock. It's new to me, and it's basically boiling or simmering the entire piece of meat instead of just the bones. I did 7 jars of meat stock with a chicken, and I did 4 jars of venison stock or broth, which is deer. I also did venison chicken broth, and I did 6 jars of that. My next section is meals. So these are things that are pretty much ready to eat as they are. I included pasta sauces on this list, but obviously I'd have that with cooked pasta, but I'm still including it on the meal section. I did 10 jars of chicken soup, 6 jars of shredded barbecue chicken, 19 jars of chicken chili, 3 jars of just plain shredded chicken, 7 jars of Brunswick stew, 6 jars of corn and potato soup, 5 jars of pasta sauce with ground venison, 23 jars of pasta sauce without any meat, 7 jars of goose stew, 3 jars of ground beef, 7 jars of chicken pot pie filling, 7 jars of goose fillet, which is like a slow-cooked shredded goose meat, 7 jars of beef chili, 18 jars of venison stew, and 5 jars of just plain venison. The next section is sauce and spread, so not any jams. These are a mix of savory sauces and sweet sauces. I did 4 jars of rhubarb barbecue sauce, 3 jars of golden relish, 10 jars of applesauce with cinnamon, 7 jars of apple butter, 6 jars of just plain applesauce, and 9 jars of green tomato salsa. Now on to vegetables. I did 63 jars of tomatoes, and specifically I did these all in 1 liter jars. I wasn't keeping track of the size of every other jar for all of the other things, but I know for sure I did 1 liter jars for the tomatoes. So I have a total of 63 liters of tomatoes. I did 3 jars of pickles, 6 jars of beets, 7 jars of beans, 11 jars of corn, and 7 jars of carrots. Moving on to the fruit section. As a side note, I've really been enjoying having canned fruit, specifically for smoothies. I used to buy a lot of frozen fruit to have in smoothies because it's cheaper than fresh fruit during the off seasons, but I'm just so glad that I did a lot of canned fruit because it's such a money saver. I did 53 jars of canned pineapple, 51 jars of peaches, 4 jars of cherries, 13 jars of raspberries, 2 jars of nectarines, and 13 jars of blueberries. The last section is jam and jellies. I didn't really plan on doing a lot this year, or I guess last year in 2024, but my husband requested some specific types, and I like to make jams and jellies to give as gifts. So I did 3 jars of lilac jelly, 4 jars of plain strawberry jam, 12 jars of strawberry lemon jam, 7 jars of strawberry mint jam, 5 jars of strawberry rhubarb jam. The mint and the rhubarb were both from my garden. I did 11 jars of raspberry jam, 3 jars of tart cherry jam using cherries from our trees. I also did 6 small jars of tart cherry jelly using the pits. I did 5 jars of plain peach jam, 2 jars of peach jalapeno jam, 2 jars of peach raspberry jam, and 3 jars of blueberry jam. The grand total of 2024 preserves is 700 jars total. I honestly was shocked when I tallied everything up because I just wasn't expecting it to be that much. For comparison, in 2023, I canned 262 jars total, and I felt like that was a lot back then. So I was really just shocked, like I said, when I totaled up the 2024 tally. I didn't have a specific goal in mind for jar count, but I just made it a priority to do a lot more meals and a lot more juice and, of course, the tomatoes. I'm often asked if I grow everything that I preserve, and that's not really the case for me. Obviously, things like pineapple, I'm not growing here in Ontario, Canada, but I will look for things that are on sale at the grocery store, like pineapple. When it's a really good price, I'll buy 5 or 10 in one trip and can the fruit, and then I make pineapple tea with the skin and the core. Other things like seasonal fruits, such as peaches and raspberries and strawberries, we're not growing those ourselves. So we have a few different places that we go to get local fruit. Right now, we just get local peaches, well, sort of local from southern Ontario, but we get those just at the grocery store. I make sure that they are Ontario peaches as opposed to being imported from somewhere else. And this past summer, we went to an organic blueberry farm to pick berries, and that was a really fun experience. They were definitely pricey, but well worth it because they were just so delicious, and it was a really fun day. So I did make blueberry jam from that, but the whole blueberries that I canned, I just bought those at the grocery store. They were Ontario blueberries in season, and they were a really, really good price. The things from my own garden that I preserved were the tomatoes, beets, beans, corn. I didn't grow enough pickling cucumbers to do much with those. I had a really bad crop for that, but a neighbor shared some with me. I also grew the rhubarb that I used to make barbecue sauce and mix in with the strawberry jam. Obviously, all the tomatoes, I already said that. The green tomatoes from my garden, that was just what was left over at the end of the season and wasn't ripening. And I know you can artificially ripen them indoors, but I didn't want to do that, so I just made them into green salsa. All of the meat that I used was store-bought except for the game meat. So the venison and the goose, my husband hunts, so that's where I got that meat from. I was really hoping to do a lot more jars of corn last year because that's my favorite vegetable. It grows pretty well in my gardens, and I just would love to eat corn multiple times a week if I can. But I overplanted the corn in my garden. I did them way too close. So most of the seeds did germinate and grow. They just didn't produce any cobs of corn. When I grew corn before, I hand pollinated and I just didn't have the time or even the space in my garden, honestly, to hand pollinate last year. So there were a lot of factors that contributed to a low yield of corn. While I got 11 jars, I would have liked to have a lot more, but that's okay because now I can just plan to do things a little bit differently this coming growing season. I'm already setting my goal for the number of jars I want to preserve in 2025. That goal is 1,000 jars. I'm going to be focusing again on meals that are ready to eat, lots of tomatoes, hopefully if my garden produces well, and continuing to do a lot of fruit for smoothies. I have a whole playlist here on my channel about food preservation, and I've got a couple other videos that I think might be of interest to you if you enjoyed this one. I will leave the link for those videos in the description, so you can take a look at those if you'd like. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you found it interesting and maybe a little bit inspiring. I definitely didn't start off with a ton of canned goods and being really motivated or anything. When I started canning a bit more seriously, I think my goal was 100 jars in 2020, and I met that goal, but it was mostly jams and that kind of thing. So I wanted to really focus on doing more versatile canned goods over the next few years. I didn't grow up learning how to can. I had to learn as an adult through trial and error and research and just asking people. I go over more details about my canning journey in one of the videos I'm recommending to you, so if you are curious about that, I hope that you check it out. Again, thank you so much for watching. Have a great rest of your day.